Welcome to another edition of Big in Biz with DiViz. I'm Craig DiVizzio, and my guest today is Shondrella Avery. What an inspiring, motivating story she told of how she found her purpose, found her gifts, turned that into a career, being an actor, producer, tech owner, philanthropist. Stay tuned. I guarantee you will enjoy it. Welcome to another edition of Big in Biz with DiViz. I'm Craig DiVizzio, president of DiVizzio International, and my guest today is Shondrella Avery. Now, some of you know that name. Excited to have her, but before I go over her bio, I want to share with you why I invited her on the show. But she and I were guests together on a podcast titled Passage to Profit. And the hosts were Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. Wonderful people. I'm doing a shout out to Passage to Profit for them. They had three guest presenters. I was one of the guest presenters. We had about 10 minutes each. And Shondrella, not surprisingly, was the featured guest. She got more time. Shondrella, in that presentation, you said some things that really touched my heart. And that's why I am inviting you and so happy to have you here. You said things like, God orders my steps. You said, rest in your own gifts. You'll find whatever God put in you. You talked about storytelling was easy for you. And for both of us, we spent our lives standing up in front of people. So to me, that was like, hey, here's somebody I can really relate to. You talked about your greatest passion was giving back, and you want to live a life of excellence. When you said all those things, I said, man, I like this lady and I want to know her better. I wonder if I can get her on the show. And it made my day when you said, yes, you would be willing to be on the show. Shondrella, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. It really took copious notes, I'll say. So I thank you so much for that.
Well, as I said, these are...
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, you listen to a lot of podcasts and people talk about things, and rarely do I hear things that really reach into your soul and the things that drive pretty much all of my actions. And you did that. So I wanted us to talk a little bit more about that. Let me tell the viewers a little bit about you. Shondrella describes herself as an actor, storyteller. She's a producer, a tech owner, and philanthropist. She is a proud California native from South Central LA. She graduated from the Performing Arts High School and went to a theater program at Cal State in Los Angeles. While working in a serious job, an executive senior manager in hospitality in Beverly Hills, she was doing a little bit of moonlighting at night in comedy spots as a stand-up comedian. She starred in several TV shows. Most notably, she was the co-lead with Chelsea Handler in Girls Behaving Badly. Your career took off in 2004 with the indie cult film Napoleon Dynamite, and she starred as LaFonda. She's done movies with a lot of names you know: Denzel Washington, Forrest Whitaker, Jennifer Hudson, Alicia Keys, Christopher Walken. She's also produced a dozen features of her own, shown in theaters and made-for-TV movies. She had an HBO one-woman comedy special titled Ain't I Enough? She is now a tech owner, and we're going to talk about this a good bit today. She's got a new app called Actor Trade, which allows talent to scene study, record their performance, and upload it to casting and directors. And she's already got 20,000 subscribers and was featured in Variety magazine. She's a board member of the Sickle Cell Disease Foundation and a huge supporter against domestic violence and bullying. Shondrella, thank you so much for being on the show. What were some of the significant events in your life that got you kind of grounded in that way, if you would?
Well, thank you for asking that. I really appreciate even everything you said, because the one thing I do the very best that I can is I give myself a way to be used. And, growing up in South Central, I'm one of 10 kids. large family, and my parents were foster parents. And so we have fostered more than 200 children over 33 years. And the one thing my mom always said to us was, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, too much is given, much will be required. And as a result, we were given much, even in the set of circumstances that we were in, living in South Central, because we had one another. And many of these children did not. And so I'm deeply rooted in Christianity. I'm God-fearing. And so the opportunities for this to kind of infuse itself in what I do for a living, I didn't know if it was taboo or not. It didn't really matter. I grew up, I lived with an Irish family during the weekday to go to a private school, Assembly of God Christian school. They were Christians and they were white. And, so I have had, the faith of God in me for my whole life. I'm baptized and so on and so forth. So for me, when you train up a child in the way he or she should grow, when they are old, they should not depart from it. That's what the word of God says. And it is true. And I guess I would say I'm a testament to that because it has not departed from me. Does it take work? Sure. Are you in an industry, fast paced, lots of money, fame, success, notoriety, where it could sway your perspective? Absolutely. But I came into the industry knowing exactly who I was.
When I started my career, I've been an instructor for 40 years now. And so what we have in common is being front and center. And that is that's a position that you have called a very intimate space. I call that it's a sacred space. So it's even when I heard that term, I was like, we're on the same plane. Let me tell you very quick, my story of finding that was I was resistant to teaching until I filled in for another instructor. And after only 1 hour, I said, this is where I belong. This is my gift. This is what I'm going to use the rest of my. How did you discover? You've got a lot of gifts that you've shared. You're an actor, you're a producer, you're. So how did you discover those gifts? Was it something that immediately came to you? Was it something somebody said to you?
Great question. How I happened upon this talent is, again, as I say, I come from a big family. When you're the eldest, you have to corral a bunch of kids together. Make sure they do their homeworks, entertain them when your parents are working. And so for me, I was always goofy. I'm still goofy. Storytelling doesn't stop me from being goofy. And I believe it was just something God put into me, to be honest with you, because I have been a storyteller and a performer since the first grade. I was a spelling bee champion at the private school I went to. Every year from first grade to sixth grade, I won the blue ribbon. Hence, as you know, I love the color blue. I think it's actually because my father's favorite color was blue and all my brothers' favorite color is blue. And so I always won the blue ribbon. So I believe for me, it was just the presence of being on stage. I was a poet in elementary school, and it just was a spirit. And I'm tall. And I just knew. I knew at probably 8 or 9 that I just enjoyed the stage, and not so much the praise that came from the performance, but just in their eyes, their attentiveness when they would lean in, especially when I was doing a spelling bee champion. I just loved how people were just enamored by the gift of just memorization and putting it to work. And so, I went to 1 year public high school, only one, and I was bullied in the 1 year. Didn't know why. I didn't know I was odd. I didn't know I was different. I didn't know my height was a thing. I didn't know not having a full figure at like 12 was like not popular because I didn't have the magic. You know what I'm saying? The magic took a little while.
Right.
It wasn't there. It totally took its time catching up to me. So I didn't get that. And so I was bullied in the 9th grade. And that's where my mom saw in the newspaper a school for the performing arts. And she knew at that point I was kind of eclectic and very different. She sent me to poise school so I can learn my posturing and this, that, and the other. And I auditioned amongst hundreds, maybe thousands of other kids. And they accepted me. My grades were excellent. I was a studious kid, had to do well in school. That was important to mom and daddy. And from there, I went to Laksha, Performing Arts High School. And you know what? It was so amazing because I knew the moment I got there they were odd and they were eclectic and they were white and black. Maybe not so many black, but they were like, the white people were like just different and they were artistic and we were just like fame. It was like fame for these odd kids. And the school was derived from the one in New York. So I just knew this was me. And it just took off from there. But I have to say, it starts at the house. You just have a lot of play. Some people play with dolls. I play with human beings.
You mentioned the look in their eyes. There are times, and I want to know if you have a similar experience to this. There are times when I'm teaching, and I'm going 100 miles an hour, and I'm really in a zone, is what I call it. You get your own terms for it. And I'm in a zone, and I'm absolutely capturing the attention of every single person within earshot. At that point, it's really interesting. What happens to me is I'm almost have an out-of-body experience where I can be standing on the side of the room, seeing myself in the front of the room, delivering information, and I'm not even paying attention to what I'm saying. It's almost autopilot, but it's me. I think it's watching the gift in action, so to speak. Do you have something? Is it when you're doing the stand-up comedy or whatever, something like that, where it's just a magical experience for you?
That's an excellent question and great observation. I guess I can say yes. As a stand-up comic, you're leaned into people, so it really requires. One thing I tell people as an actor, I went to school for theater, so I have a theater degree. I went to performing arts high school, so I'm thespian. To do stand-up, to transition to stand-up wasn't a thing that it was on my to-do list. But again, if God orders your steps, he's in control. So I just went with the flow. And, on stage, I would tell people, when you're doing theater, you don't really look to people to give you a reaction because you're in the moment. Yeah. But as a stand-up comic, it really, I believe, by bar none, of all the storytelling or all the aspects of my entertainment, my space, I do believe that stand-up comedy is probably the most challenging because you have really one objective, so people think, and that is to make people laugh. But I think you have one objective, and that is to educate people and the space with which you're bringing to them. And if they have a sense of humor or if it's just a moment to think about the information, that's okay. And so it took me, the look in their eyes and to get that feeling from them. Yeah, you need to have that validation, but you also need to know that even when you are on stage in whichever capacity, if one is not responding the way you think that they should respond, it doesn't mean that you're not effective, because everyone responds differently. My whole entire family, all my siblings, one laughs, one doesn't. I know who to cater my joke towards, who's going to give me more of that chuckle if I need that. And if I want to make sure that I'm more impactful, I know who to cater that to. So I just think it's learning and knowing your audience. And that's in any interview, right? When you're in an interview, you can tell if you're on a rhythm, you're saying something. You can also tell when you're long-winded, or you can also tell when they've just totally checked out. But it's really in the eyes. It's really paying attention and connecting here in this moment of present mind, really being present in the eyes. So I always enjoy the world of play behind the space where, have I looked at myself? Nah, I'd watch myself for sure. Stand up will probably be the only time that I can say if I can see if it's working. But after I've done a job and I'll look back on the story and see where everyone is so pumped up about it, yeah, I'll evaluate. Did I believe myself? Because that's important. Do you believe what you are saying? Otherwise, then you're just in repetition mode. And that's what people say, how can you do theater? How can you do theater? How can you do theater? You're on stage time and time again. And I'm like, it's a new audience, but it's also re-engaging the new conversation today, even if the words are the same. It's my feeling that I bring to that conversation. And I'm sure you feel the same way, right, Craig?
I do. And I'm pretty sure Well, just from my perspective, at the end of every class, they send out evaluations and they get them back. And I look at them, but I really don't need to look at them because I'm aware enough of what I'm doing at the time to know whether I did a good, we call performance, or I didn't do a good performance. One of my learnings along the way was as I'm delivering information and I'm watching people's body language, facial expressions, nodding their eyes, all the rest of that stuff. Every now and then you would have somebody who would just be sitting there almost with a blank look on their face. And I'm thinking, gosh, am I reaching this person? And then Shondrella, almost to a person, those are the people that come up to you after I'm not saying show because it's not a show for me, after the class, and they go, man, that you had me spellbound. And so I was interpreting it as, I don't know if I'm even reaching this person, and here's a person having the experience of their life. I'm sure that you have that same experience.
Oh, yeah. It's important to not worry about how, in your particular line of work, it's different. We've already come to the stage as a stand-up comic. I've already decided the conversation. There will be times on stage as a comic that it'll bob and weave depending on people making a reference or a sound, or if you will, while I'm on stage. But in terms of an actor, I've already done my homework at home. So when I show up, I'm so thankful, you know if you're talented or not, right? At some point in time, no one has to verify or validate your gift. Either you have the gift to yourself, you have to know if the gift is even effective to you. If the gift is not effective to you as a person, then are you just doing the thing just because you can? That's not fulfilling as a human being. I don't think you should just play pretend in something and not really be effective to your own self. So by the time I show up to tell the story, I've already enveloped it.
Right.
I've already spent the time at home. I've already processed how God wants me to convey this. And then I come to work and I play. Right? I play with the other person because the nuances are bob and weave. For you, you know exactly what you're going to say. And then, like I said earlier, as a comic, sometimes you look at somebody, you know that the laughter's over there, and sometimes it's not. I'm going to work harder for the person that isn't laughing, actually, because I want to make sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
right?
want to bring you in.
Yeah.
Hey,
I want to bring you in.
Bring you into the fold here, baby. Yes, absolutely.
Come on over. This is fun over here. So I work, and I don't have to have that reference when I'm doing television because, it'll let me know when I post it up. When they watch it, oh my God, you did that part. Oh my God, you're this. The response is later for me, and oftentimes a year later.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're making our stuff, sometimes it's months later, it's years later. Interviews and things. By the time you get back to doing an interview for a project, that thing you already on to something else. So the delayed reaction to something is also rewarding. Because when you do your work and you show up, like somebody may come back to you a year later and be like, hey, Craig, thank you from what your class was. I got 3 jobs. I got this. I always think that people should come back and give you their testimony because so many people get your gift, but they don't necessarily share with you how the victory turned out. Right.
Right.
And so for me, I always feel like when people come back and say, oh, my gosh, Shondrella, you were so awesome. And then I'm like, really, what did you take from it? What lesson did you learn? What was the response that you got? Not if I looked a certain way or if that was a funny moment or not a funny moment. What did you learn from that moment? And I will engage with the fans and ask them that because I want to understand who I'm really talking to. Yeah. And how they are responding to me. And that's important also. So I think there's so many different caveats to this space.
Yeah, but I love what you're saying. It's like I'm welcoming, I'm inviting in the feedback to tell me I know what I got out of it. I know what I think you got out of it based on your expressions, but there's only one person who really knows what you got out of it, and that's you. I know that with my evaluations, one of the things that was always so surprising to me was I would ask the question, what was the most significant thing to you in this day or 2 days or 3 days that we spent together? And some of the responses absolutely would blow me away. It could be one thing that I said that was significant to them in their life at that point in time because it was something that they were struggling with. And maybe it was something that I'd said, rolled off my tongue 100 times like nothing. And it's like, oh, that touched that person. And it made me aware of the fact that everything I'm delivering is important in the sense that you never know what somebody's going to latch onto because you don't know what space they're in and what they could use at that point in time.
Just like we talked about at the very top, when I say, if I give myself a way to be used every day, God has the platform to do his will through me. I don't know who I'm speaking to. So that's why I'm always doing conversations like this, because I'm not sure who I'm talking to and who needs this word of encouragement, who needs this word of validation that you are enough, that whatever it is that's within you, that lies within you is greatness. You should operate in your excellence. Why? Because we're made from excellence. If you're made from the entity of excellence that says, in day one and look back and I say, and this is good, if God can look at his own work and say, and that was good, right? Go back in Genesis is right there. So it's not arrogance, it's being affirmed that within you lies excellence. And when we operate underneath that for the purposes of what? Because that doesn't get you the victory. You're not fulfilled. But when you are operating in that true gift that you have, oh my God, it's exhilarating. It's never tiring. It's never old. It's never stale. It's always alive and very constant, very present. And so we have to walk into those gifts knowing, and even if somebody said, no, this, that, and the other, or even if the internet tries to stop working or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. My gift is my gift. Guess what? No weapon formed against me shall ever prosper. So I think we just have to get to a place where, and in any capacity, and this is in any capacity, if all the people who are listening, listen, it's not just what I do. Before I did this, I was a day-to-day worker, 9 to 5, or worked as an executive, right? In Beverly Hills, my father said, this whole acting thing is cute, but you need to get yourself a business. And you need to I told you that before.
Real job.
A real job, something that's really going to pay the bills. And I need to see an office, right? And so I did that. Thank God I did, because it actually allowed me to be a business person. I've said this to you before. A lot of people get caught up in the show and they forget it's called show business. Right. We never focus on the business. Oh, we got a team of people to do stuff, but you should be well versed in your own business. Right? Right. You should be, having an understanding of what that business looks like. What does that business mean to you? For me, it's actually taking control and getting in front of, not because I'm a control freak. No, because I want to understand the business of people, the business of story, the business of opportunities, seizing them, taking them in the moment of, right? That's all business. And then the show part is when they call you and you play pretend, or I put myself in a movie, or there's a movie like a Napoleon Dynamite that lasts forever, that never runs out of gas.
Thank God for that, right?
Listen, let me tell you something. And let me tell you something, Craig, you said it right. Let me be very, very clear. There is no, and just think about it for a second. When you really think about the magnitude, this is our 17th anniversary, for real, for real. And the reality is it is still alive, ever present, current. I mean, I get very emotional at just the idea of how God can take a thing and prove you. If you come into a situation humble, grateful, obedient, understanding, and just do the work, he will keep that thing alive in such a way that you are not even planning. Forrest Whitaker said to me, Shondrella, in the very beginning, he said, you have a cult classic, your career is set. I got in 2003 officially. Right. And that happened in 2004. And he said, your career is set. Just follow the pathway to making sure that you make the choices that you want to do. I didn't plan on Napoleon Dynamite. It just aesthetically happened to mirror what I look like. Above 5'10", African-American woman, full body, buttocks included. That was me. There was nobody else in Hollywood looking like me. So I say that to say, that movie, if anyone has to know what God will do when he blesses a thing and he keeps blessing it, take a look at Napoleon Dynamite, because it is still a blessing to each and every one of us. We're still supremely close. We love each other dearly. We talk all the time. And there is no magic that was done. It's just favor. And favor isn't fair. Sometimes people don't get favor. Sometimes favor happens for the just and the unjust. We happen to have been, God thank you, just people that really recognize that we were doing something special. Did we know it would last 17 years and we would still be in love? No.
Yeah, I guarantee you no. Yeah, sure.
We're not foretellers. of the future. What we do know though is that every time it calls on us, we step into it. You know why? Because it was a gift that paid me initially $150. So you don't do things too for the money. You don't do it for the money. I'm an artist. I play pretend in imaginary worlds. Whether you pay me or not, even though I want to get paid, it doesn't matter the amount. It doesn't matter the amount. What it matters is the story. And I knew that that movie would be something special. I just didn't know it would last this long.
Right.
So I'm always so humble, especially to the lighter partners. I'd like to say that.
When I talk to my students about their careers, one of the things that you latched onto very early on and are rooted in and have guided your career around is using of your gifts. And I don't know, I guess I'm asking the questions like, what was your message to people? Maybe I need to share your message of how do you get more people to even assess their gifts, to take account of where am I, what am I strong at. I always say that it's not that statement of if you love what you do, you never work a day, and we both know that that's not true. We're working really hard, and you talked an awful lot about how much time and energy you put into your business, the preparedness part of it. But my sense of it is that when you are working using your gifts for a living, you have got the easiest pathway to be successful. Because if you're using your gift, you're going to do better than most people easily because it is your gift. You're not going to struggle with this. You're not going to fight with this. You won't question it. And my challenge is getting people to assess themselves at a level where they identify what their gifts are. It sounded like you just it popped up and I recognized it and I knew it. What do you say to people who are saying, I don't know, Shondrella, should I do this? Should I do that? How do you get them to do that assessment? Or is that something that you have spent time in doing?
That's a great question. How I feel people should assess their gifts are, and it depends on the age where you are, right? If you're a teenager, if you're a young person, it's generally the things that you enjoy doing, right? If it's writing, if it's, and even watching TV, people say, oh, kids watch TV a lot. Sometimes they're either escaping in the world of play, pretend, and whatever they're watching, figure out what they're watching, right? If they're young people. If they're already matured in age, anything past 24, 25, where you're kind of like out of school or you're on your way out of school, then I think you should evaluate the things that you like. What is it that you enjoy? What do you like? And what do other people say you are actually good at? I didn't think I was a stand-up comic because I'm a thespian. And in my time, I was thinking I was the Black Meryl Streep before Viola Davis. So
okay.
I didn't
wait, hold on, wait a second. You're not?
I am.
Thank you.
And so is she.
You're welcome for that lead in.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Good call, Craig. Teamwork. And when you're in a space where, obviously I didn't think I could, that wasn't something I would do, but my mom always said I was funny. My father, they thought I was goofy. And the guy I'm actually married to now was my boyfriend at the time, and he really, really thought I was funny. But he's African. So initially I would make jokes. I'm like, okay, but like you're African. Like, do you really know? Like, if I'm, he's like, no. He would be like, no, you're very funny. You don't know. Like this guy and his accent, like, okay, anyway, but and I listened to the combination and it felt so arduous. After I'd done all the right things, I went to school, I did theater. Why can't I get representation? Right? I'm working a corporate job. I joined the union without any representation. Why I was an extra behind the scenes. I did everything I needed to do to prepare. And yet I still couldn't get representation because if you don't have work, then you can't get representation.
Right.
And in order for you to get representation, you have to have work. It's like, it was such a gamut, right? But stand-up, what I found with stand-up was that it didn't offer that at all. There was no judgment. There was no worry of your height. There's no, anything other than you. And so I started to just do it. I took a chance in like one Hollywood spotlight in LA called Maverick's Flat with J. Anthony Brown, who was a brilliant comic. And it was a Saturday night, probably not a night for a newcomer. And it was my first time on stage. And they all looked at me with crickets. Like there was like, What's happening? And of course, the host was like, listen, she's cute. She's going to work out. And I came off the stage and I told my boyfriend, I'm like, you see, I wasn't funny. He said, oh my God, you were so funny. You didn't see how funny you were? People sometimes will not laugh. And it was the first time that I realized not to worry about what people are, how they're responding. Because as he said, he's not a guy that laughs out loud and bellies out loud. He's really leaning in and listening. And he was like, some people will not laugh at you, but they're listening to you. And as long as you have their attention, then you've won. And from there, I just took on. So what do I tell people? Evaluate if someone else sees another gift in you. Listen to that. Lean in. Things that you like. And then above all of those things, guys, you have to pray. I don't even care if you're not so necessarily devoted to Jesus. You have to pray to some entity to ask for direction, because the truth is you cannot do this on your own. It's not anything that you can just say, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing, I'm going in. I mean, we cannot, to get into what's happening in our country, but we can look at when you think you can do it alone, how it doesn't work out.
Yeah. You know, that one of the quotes that I have is, control is an illusion. You always have only limited control. And I think people sometimes get frustrated when they are wanting to control all the pieces, as opposed to saying, you know, I'm helpless at this point. I've done everything that I know to do. Now I'm just going to ask the question, you know, what's the answer? And then what I talk about is quieting the noise in your life long enough to hear the answer. You know, so many people are running on a treadmill and they got so much noise in their life. It's almost like there's a messenger with the answer to your problems, and they're banging on your front door, but you're in the house and you get the music so loud that you don't even know somebody's at your front door. But there's got to be that, hey, I've done everything I can. I can't control all of this. Help me. What do I need to do? And then listen for the answer. And then there's that trust factor. Shondrella, it has been a pleasure.
Thank you so very much. I love you so much.
Shondrella, thank you so much. Exceeded my expectations, and I had some high expectations. You're wonderful, and we need more people like Shondrella Avery on this planet. That I am absolutely certain of. That's it for another edition of Big in Biz with DiViz. Thanks for watching. Till next time, stay cool, have good thoughts. See ya.